Hello, everybody. It's the Grouchy Historian. Here we are, the last lesson for the first quarter and the final sort of scene setter for getting into the actual Constitution. So this week, we go over the Articles of Confederation, right? The first American government. And again, I'm going to have you read the entire articles because what I want you to see is when we get into looking at the Constitution itself, it's important to look at the differences between the two because there are some significant differences between the two. And I think what we're going to see is why the colonists, or at least certain members of the colonists, decided that the Articles of Confederation just were not going to form a workable government for the new United States and the new challenges they have to face. So, as you can see here, the first American government was actually formed by the Articles of Confederation, but they had huge, major issues, primarily driven by each colony's desire to jealously protect their own prerogatives at the expense of the greater good. And this is not a phrase I make lightly. It's backed up by Professor Amar in his book. But yeah, they were independent colonies, sovereign colonies. They were not going to give up their independence or their sovereignty for some overarching government that they all thought could descend into tyranny, right? Here's the challenge they have. They're fighting against big government, the monarchy, parliament, but in order to win the war and to avoid anarchy, they need to form a government of some sort. So the Articles of Confederation are what they come up with. Now, as you go through these, I'm going to hit some highlights here, but I want you to read them for yourselves. But I wanted to hit some highlights. Article 2, every state retains its sovereignty. Article 3, they form a league of friendship. I don't even know what that is. It's not a union. It's not a country. It's a loose alliance of 13 independent sovereign states. Not a good plan. Importantly, Article 5, Section 4 says each state gets one vote on any important issue. There's no, proportional representation. There's no House, there's no Senate. There's basically all the states send their own delegation. Their own delegation decides how they want to vote, and that state gets one vote. Problem is, if the delegates within a state can't agree on something, things get really messy. Okay. Article 6 and 8 are the first attempts to sort of figure out how they're going to finance the war, how they're going to operate foreign policy, and the ability to make war, to relegate that to Congress. But again, it seems a little loosey-goosey. There's a whole lot of verbiage in there, right? You'll definitely see that also in Article 9, where it's sort of a convoluted attempt to define what the congressional powers. Again, looking at regulating trade, commerce, tariffs between the states, always about the Benjamins, right? But again, if you can make it through Article 9 without going, what the heck did that just say? Then you're a better reader than I am, because I'm like, I don't even know what they're trying to accomplish there, but they're not doing a very good job of it, right? This is why we're going to see when the Constitution is written, it's clear, it's concise, to the point, very brief. Very brief. We're going to talk about that some more when we get into the Constitution. Now, many of the issues that Congress faced required a simple majority. Some required 9 out of the 13 colonies / states. But again, always voting as a state. So there would be a big potential for gridlock if a state couldn't decide how they want to vote. Okay. In the next couple of essays, you'll see that Alexander Hamilton, our guy, starts to poke holes in this using history, right? History, always important. And he says practical, and of course, Hamilton was a financial genius, which of course why he was our first Secretary of Treasury. And we're going to find out just how big a genius he is. But he starts to poke holes in it, particularly, and we're going to see that this becomes really almost the 800-pound elephant in the room in Philadelphia in 1787, is the colonists' huge war debt, both at the state level and then as a collective. The colonies, not surprisingly, start to squabble about the war debt because it's got to be paid. Because, shocking, nobody wants to lend them money because they haven't paid back their war debts. Funny how that works, right? So we're going to see in here that the structural issues with the Articles of Confederation quickly become apparent. Again, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Adams, others are watching this. They're taking notes. They're researching. They're figuring out, how can we do this better? How can we make the central government stronger, yet preserve our liberties? How can we assure that we pay off our debt, that we get the economy moving again, right? This was very important. All of this is going to come to a head in really about 1785, 1786, before they even get to what will become, we'll talk about that some more in the next couple of weeks, about a covert op that gives us our Constitution. All right, this concludes our first quarter. Next week, you'll have an exam, okay, that will be administered by your instructor. I like to make my exams cumulative. They're always essay. Sorry, I don't do fill in the blank. I don't do multiple choice. Essay, writing, 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 okay? Now, of course, your instructor can always add more questions if they wish. Always fun. But there won't be a video for next week because, of course, it's exam week, right? And we're trying to look at the entire first quarter as sort of a whole. So good luck on your exam, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.